All right, hello and welcome to Political Voice. I'm Moses Humphrey. Now, the biggest conversation in Africa today is about the resurgence of military coups. Like a stubborn virus, coups are back in the bloodstream of the continent's political system, and it certainly does not seem like last week's coup in Gabon will be the last this month or probably this year. As a matter of fact, in Cameroon and Rwanda, the fear of coups has given birth to the wisdom that has led to the mass retirement of several generals. But is that all there is to do? In Gabon already, the junta, in less than a week after taking power, says it will take its time to conduct elections to avoid repeating what it calls mistakes of the past. Now, head of the junta, Bryce Oligwe Ngoma, who played an active role in perpetuating the Bongo dynasty, in an address televised on state owned TV on Friday, said the military regime does not want to conduct elections in a hurry to avoid having the same people in power. The Gabon military, led by General Nguema, in the early hours of last Wednesday, ousted President Ali Bongo from office shortly after he was declared winner of the August 26 elections that would have seen him stay in office for a third term. Now, shortly after the coup, the military installed Nguema as transitional president. Now, he will be sworn in today. Well, I do have my guests with me in the studio. We have Tuchuku Ezukama, who is a political commentator, and a VOP in-house analyst, Cyril Abaku. Good to have you, gentlemen.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Moses. I'm glad to be here as well.
All right, Cyril, let me start with you. Well, when the coup in Niger took place, I reckon that you were all for putting a stalemate, ensuring that coups
Yes.
like this don't happen again.
Yes.
When a while ECOWAS was still tinkering with how to go about it, whether to use force or not to use force, another one has happened in Gabon. What do you make of this?
Yeah, well, I think it's a good way to open the conversation. Um, ECOWAS is indecisive or is undecided. The world powers are breathing down on our friends in Africa. But the reality is that whilst ECOWAS is talking about what to do, and world powers are breathing heavily on our friends on the continent, the fact is that the cartography is fast changing, the cancer is metastasizing, and in the end, it will be a case of what we could have done that we didn't do. It will be a case of what could we really have done. It will be a case of where the coast really want, and if we had, wouldn't it have been better to have done something than to have done nothing? I did call for stringent measures in Niger. I was of the opinion that something needed to give, because what happened in Niger was the signal, quite frankly. But ECOWAS couldn't bite; they were backing. In fact, now they've backed down. And then, last week there was the coup in Gabon. So clearly, I don't think that the coup in Gabon will be the last. I saw this coming, and I said ECOWAS needed to have moved to Niger to either force out the junta or create a stalemate as a way of counteracting and counterbalancing the power. But they lost that window, they lost that opportunity, and next in Gabon, we don't know where next this may happen. But the reality is that it's happening. It's happening, and what can we do about it? Sacking generals in Cameroon and sacking generals in Rwanda notwithstanding, those are not solutions to coups. It's very far from the solution. So, but where we are, the way it is now is to say, we are next. We just hold hands and say, we are next.
Now, Atochukwu, now, we don't want coups in Africa, of course. So we will not ask where next, because the truth is we've had one too many, and we don't want it to continue like this. But then the question is this the coups taking place in some parts of Africa now? Is it what one would call, does it have a place in modern Africa?
Well, it's the reality. Does it have a place? It has taken its place already.
It has taken its place.
That's the reality. But my concern with ECOWAS, or my disagreement with ECOWAS, AU, and the international communities that they keep trying to address the symptom, not the problem. So if you go pouring water, if you go pouring water on a malaria patient because you want his fever to go down, you're wasting your time. If you treat malaria, fever will be gone. So what we need to treat in Africa is bad government, abuse of power, corruption, criminality, lawlessness on the part of the dictators that rule us in the name of democracy. If you get that done, then there will be no more coups. Then in Gabon, Albert Bongo was there for 47 years. Do you think the people were credible and fair and free elections that elected him? It was all rigged elections. It was all electoral fraud that kept him in power. And as he left, his son came in. So dynasty. Now you have some kind of monarchy. The son came in since 2009 and remained there. The last election was flawed. It was his opponent, Osaz, that won the election. So he manipulated the electoral process so as to sustain himself in power indefinitely. And when things like this happen, inevitably there will be coups. So reshuffling of generals, that is good. In Cameroon, the people of Cameroon, the Cameroonians are so tired of their president, Paul Biya. He's been there for so long.
It brings me to my next question, really, about what is instigating the coups. Now, a school of thought has it that ECOWAS may not have, the power to intervene in how long this, in how long the leaders stay in office. Now, if ECOWAS cannot intervene in how long leaders in certain African countries remain in office, or how the elections are carried out, and that keep them in office, whether it's flawed or not, why then should ECOWAS have a say in whether or not the military decides to step in and correct things? Cyril, please.
Yeah, well, so this is the picture. Usually, it wouldn't be that the presidents who want to stay in power impose themselves on the people. That's not how it happens. There's always a procedure. We do know that in the end, it is the hand of Esau and the voice of Jacob. But usually, parliaments of those countries, or even in some cases, referendum or referenda do take place. In which case, people would, it would have been taken, it would have been put to a vote for people to speak whether they want the president to stay on or not. That's one. Number two, it could also go to parliament, where parliamentarians will be the ones to now decide whether to remove the limit of the president's tenure. It happened in Guinea with Alpha Conde in Guinea-Bissau. It happened in this same country. We are Gabon. What's his name? Ali Bongo was outside last week. Usually, so when the West understands democracy as a language, if the parliament of any country is deeming it fit to hold a discussion on whether the president should stay on or not, whether the term of president should be extended or not, and they pass the vote, that is what will now enable the president of that country to run, to seek re-election, whether he wants, to now run for office. Usually, groups would have come up to say, Mr. President, we like the good work you're doing, and we are glad that Parliament has even thought it fit to extend the office of the president, not yours per se, the presidential tenure. We now want to ask you that you run. So in a week, 100 groups have come to say, Mr. President, you must run for president. He says, well, as a Democrat, it was not my intention to run for office again.
They're asking me to.
But in response to the people's plea and cry, I am now offering myself up in the hope that you vote for, if you don't vote for me, I will go home. But if you vote for me, I'm here to serve you again. So can anybody looking at that trajectory of events conclude that that this man has imposed himself on his people? The answer is most likely no. But we do know that it is never a level playing field, because more often than not, when you go to parliament and check, that parliament is made up of 80 to 90% of people who are members of the president's political party. So who is instigating who? That's one. Number two, all of those groups that come, market women groups, and bodies and so on, professional bodies and associations, and sometimes even the unions, have largely been cowed into submission. And in some cases, maybe have been given money, and are backed by groups that in every election year, you have new groups that didn't exist before. They just carry one portfolio, and that's a group. So maybe they say 120 groups are backing a president, are calling on a president to run. You never see. In Nigeria, we used to see them in Abuja Unity Fountain. They share 10,000 naira for everybody. They come and they hire protesters. There was one I saw in Abuja some years ago. They said that protesting for Niger Delta communities, and all of them were Musa, Muhammad, Dauda, and I said, these people, it's like there are contractors whose work is to collect the money and give it the crowds. Exactly. So in that case, it is like somebody who has understood the game and knows how to tick all the boxes to fulfill righteousness. So they just take the money and then do the. Now the point is this: there is a moral, and this is where I will hook my argument. There is a moral side to all of this. Nelson Mandela could have done the same thing. He didn't do it. Mandela came out of prison. He was hailed as after 27 years on Robben Island. After he had been hailed and celebrated, he came out and said he will seek only one term of 4 years, and honorably kept his honor intact and walked away. But for a lot of our fathers and grandfathers who have now been ruling Africa for God knows how many years, they don't do the same thing. They stay on in power. Mugabe's own, there was a particular year in Zimbabwe where even party members, people were running for parliament and running for regional, provincial offices, were shocked to find out that they all won the election. They couldn't believe it.
Everybody won.
Because in Zimbabwe, it is the post office that does the elections in Zimbabwe. So when the results came that they won, they didn't. They said, "Did you win the election?" Mugabe won. You know, Mugabe always win. Mugabe will win the election. So the point is this: it is that our leaders have jettisoned the moral side of things. Otherwise, your father was president from 1964 or so to 2009. You became president in 2009.
Now you're grooming yourself.
And you've done 2 terms. Is it not? I mean,
it's not enough.
Do you share the same view with him?
Yeah, we'll repeat your question. You had a question for you.
Yes, the question then was, I think the question was the role Africa, the role
the AU,
the role ECOWAS was playing in allowing presidents remain in power.
Okay, so sorry, I think I didn't hit the nail on the question in particular. What they can, I mean, given the dire nature of things today, the AU, like we have the AU court, we are the ECOWAS court. You can take a case there, ECOWAS will rule, but it's not binding on because of sovereignty issues, right? What can happen is that the AU and ECOWAS, basically, I mean, either way, AU, ECOWAS can have a dormant legislation that recommends 4 years renewable ones, which is you can have 4 years initially and renew it and then no more. So that should act as a shadow principle to compel, at least to compel its member nations to say there's a template for us to use. The argument always will be that even in the West, it's not uniform. America only adopted the 2-term limit after Franklin Roosevelt died. He did four terms, okay, 4 straight terms. In the UK, there's no term limit. The Prime Minister can renew her term as often as possible. Margaret Thatcher was there from 1979 to
12 years.
About 12 years. So this is the thing. It's about civilization and how as a country we view it. In America now they say 4 terms, renewable only once, which is 8 years. Okay.
4 years.
Yes, 4 years.
a term.
Yes, a term. Renewable only one. So you can't do 4 years, for example, and then 8 years and come back after an interim. No. It's 8 years in a lifetime. Nigeria has the same principle to say 4 years renewable ones. You can you renew it once, but in the UK it's not the case. So, but ECOWAS can do Africa a good by saying, you know what? Even if it's not binding, as a body we believe that you can't do more than 8 years, either jointly or broke. So that way it can be a guiding principle. Or a benchmark for our member countries.
All right then. I was going to take your view on this, but do you have a dissenting view, or you?
No, I have a view. It might be dissenting, it might be conformity, but I have a view.
Go ahead, please.
The thing is that ECOWAS do not care when these dictators or these presidents rig elections. And they don't care when they extend their rule beyond the constitutional time limit. But then they worry when people react or the soldiers react and they say coup. That is called hypocrisy. So if you're poking me, you're punching me, and nobody says a word, but when I shout, he's punching me, people say, hey, why are you disturbing our peace? If you are for real, you start with the man who was punching me or poking me. Say, don't punch him, don't poke him. Because if you continue to punch him and poke him, he will shout. So the thing is all shrouded in hypocrisy. ECOWAS is deceiving itself because birds of the same feather flock together. The man in Nigeria, or with the exception of Ghana and Senegal, the rest are some shambolic form of democracy. There's nothing much happening. It's all electoral fraud, it's all corruption, it's all endless tinkering with the constitution so as to achieve one tendentious purpose or the other. So the coups are coming back, and inevitably so. The coups will in a place like Rwanda, for example, where the president ostensibly is doing a good job, he wants to remain in office indefinitely, does not tolerate dissent, tolerates no opposition. He runs for office, I think, but as the sole candidate, or I think it's some weird arrangement like that. So he knows that these days are numbered. If you have done a good job, let the people give you that mark. We approve of what you are, even if there's no time limit. But let there be periodic elections so that when people are tired of you, they'll
periodic, free and fair elections.
Yeah, periodic. Oh yes, the election in this context meaning free and free, fair and free. So that's the thing with ECOWAS and AU, and that's why they cannot go too far. They must take away the hypocrisy and deal with the reality. So you have to make some ground rules for your members. You cannot be breaching democratic rules and be part of WAS. If you do, we will sanction you one way or the other, just like they want to sanction coup leaders. But when you approve of the misrule of the civilian presidents, the fraud, the violence of the civilian presidents, and then disagree with people's reaction to the misrule, then it's all hypocrisy.
Now, let me quickly.
If I just me, you see, ECOWAS and the AU being democratic institutions, as it were, guardians of democracy, being the regional bodies. Now, like I said earlier, if two things have to happen, there has to be that law by ECOWAS Parliament to say that they are officially limiting the tenures of presidents to 2 terms of 4 years or 2 terms of 5 years, depending on how each country will write its constitution. That will be one. Number two, I think that often there is a crisis of the paradox, or a crisis of identity, or crisis of strategy, in which, like I said, if the people came out to say, I mean, you have people carrying placards and shouting and on the streets, they're marching and saying, We want this. We want this. Democracy is about the voice of the people, not of those in power. That's why it often generates from the people. So when Mr. Zukama says that it will be hypocrisy if ECOWAS didn't say anything when they were elongating their tenures, but only came to speak when there's a coup, the matter will now be an issue of, based on what yardstick will ECOWAS be calling them to order. Because if ECOWAS has no prescribed lay down rule of how it thinks democracy should be run.
There are already international rules. They should be credible elections.
I know, but even the UN does not have...
Time limit is not the issue. You know, in the US, George Washington, the first US president, served first term, second term, and didn't run again.
Sure.
The second president,
John Adams,
first term, second term, didn't run again.
Thomas Jefferson,
first term, second term, didn't run again. So the only man that kept running and winning was Franklin Roosevelt.
Yeah.
He won 4 times. He died in office, after he has won the 4th time. That was when the law came. But when there was this unwritten law, that is just 2 times, nobody worried about the law. But when one man exploited the situation, then the law came. But even if you have no laws limiting terms of office, let the elections...
Your moral, you should be moralistic enough to know that, look, you should not run more than twice and allow others to
even if you
run
choose
as well.
to run forever, but let the elections be elections. Let the elections be credible. Julius Nyerere was in power for so long in Tanzania, and when he wanted to leave, people were crying on the street. People wanted him to stay. They loved him. He had done a good job. But he said, no, it's time for me to go. So stay there forever, but let it be with the approval of the people. But when you manipulate the system, get parliaments that are rubber stamp parliaments to approve of change the constitution, like the man in Chad did. They keep doing it. Obasanjo even tried it in a heterogeneous country like Nigeria with the 10 years peace.
He tinkered with it.
He tried
rather too seriously.
He tried to, but failed. And like Sonia Woshika told him, it will end in nothing but blood and tears. Don't try it. But he wanted to all go through, but failed. So the problem is with the politicians, not with the soldiers. The soldiers react to a situation that the politicians have created. So the antidote to military coup is good governance, is respect for the rule of the law, is credible, fair, and free elections. And without those ingredients, there will always be coups.
All right, there will always be coups as long as the people are not satisfied enough. But Cyril, now let me ask you, I think I'll come back to you on this one too. What has been the role of the West in these coups playing out?
It's not a very good story. I mean, up to this point, we can look at it as world powers, East, West, Far East, and so on. Now, in any country, no coup can succeed without the tacit or explicit support of a world power somewhere. It has never happened. As a matter of fact, there are at least 4 internal ingredients, and then others will follow. 1, any successful coup must have the media, must have a lot of money, and must have the military, that is the critical sector of the military that you must, whose buy-in you must get. So these 3 must be there. And then, sadly, men of opinion, who could in turn be businessmen, politicians, men of means, opinion leaders, people who can vocally support what is going on. That is internally. Externally, you will need the buy-in of a world power that must come to back you. You know, the only time I know that a coup took place without, well, ostensibly without any backing, sort of, was in Liberia. Strasser was it Liberia or Sierra Leone? Sierra Leone. Yes, Strasser, on the battlefield, when he wasn't getting support. He just woke up one morning and after a shrapnel wound, angrily took some soldiers and said, let's go to Freetown. Just went, kicked the president out.
It wasn't a coup. They saw him coming and everybody
And
started running. So he took over.
And America didn't have a choice than to recognize him as, president. But I mean, he needed America to recognize him still. That's where I'm going. So often in Mali, as in Burkina Faso, as in Niger, the coup took place. Protesters came out and were waving Russian flags and saying, and then the Wagner people came to came here. So you can always tie it in that you cannot stage a coup. I mean, America, the CIA, we now have the privilege of looking at the classified documents, how the CIA sponsored coups in Latin America, in Africa, even the one that happened in Egypt that brought the current president. No, the current president, is it Al-Sisi? He was the chief of the army to Mohamed Morsi, and on the eve of the coup, he was at not the Federal Palace, but I don't know what the president. He went to meet Mohamed Morsi and said, "I'm pledged loyalty," and said, "Mr. Morsi, we are with you, we support you." Then, in fact, as at then, hundreds of supporters came out to protest for Morsi, and so the army chief, Abdel Fattah Al-Sisi, was with Morsi and said, "Mr. Morsi, fear not." Morsi was running Egypt into the Red Sea a second time. When people began protesting and said, "Mr. Morsi, we are for you, we are for," of course, they were paid protesters. Al-Sisi went to visit Morsi and said, "Morsi, as they are supporting you on the streets, we too, we are for you, the army. You have nothing to fear. We've done our intelligence checks. Everything is okay." The following day, Al-Sisi moved on Morsi, kicked him out. Then thousands of protesters came out on the streets, ostensibly to support Mr. Sisi, who went from military dictator to being president of Egypt today. Now, the fact was that the money that sponsored the Al-Sisi coup didn't come from Egypt. It came from one of the power capitals of the world, one of the superpowers. That money was sent in as university grants, research grants, and agricultural grants. We don't want to go into that one. But all the monies travel around the world, travel, and later found their way in Egypt, and it within reach of Mr. Sisi, who moved on Morsi.
Mobilized.
Who, yeah, of course, to mobilize and move on Morsi. Where did the money come from? One of the world's capitals. All these coups that take place, go and check how the funding has come. It takes a lot of money to stage a coup. In fact, even when the coup is in process, it takes like 24 hours. In Nigeria, it happened when Joshua Dogonyaro made the announcement on the day of the coup. Then the following, I think even on the following morning, Babangida came and addressed the nation and said, "I have become, before then, the Buhari coup, Sani Abacha was the one who first made the announcement. Then later on, Buhari came out. So it's not, a coup is not an easy business. And then the kind of intelligence that you need, that's how you know that these world powers have egos over your country the way even you don't have it.
Of course.
In Nigeria, on the eve of the January 15th coup, January 14th, they told the British people warned Tafawa Balewa and said, "This could happen anytime. You need to take don't sleep in, just." They told him what to do. He said no, that if it was his fate for him to die in a coup, it was, and that was what
like a good Muslim, yeah.
As a good Muslim, and the following day he died in a coup. So Moses, there are very few accidents in the world, believe me. There are very few accidents in politics, believe me. So this thing, and the point is that when these coups take place, they are not there. These coups don't happen because they want to make life better for the people. It's not. It is more often than not their interest.
People celebrating.
No.
That were leading them.
I can explain that. Please,
I
can explain that. Was it in Mali? Yes, it was in Mali because I think it was in Mali when Mamadou Doumbouya staged the coup that ousted Prime Minister. I think was it Boubacar Keïta or so. 2021. Moses. The Russians had proposed a defense contract, whatever agreement with the Malian leader. He rejected it. As soon as Doumbouya came into power, he ratified the agreement. How do we marry that? In the case of Burkina Faso, the 20-something, I think that's him on the screen, the young man, he made it clear. He said Burkina Faso was breaking, his foreign policy was that he was breaking away from France and to go to Russia. Now, in all of this, these coupists in Gabon, didn't look like they faced resistance. They just went in there, arrested the president. They were in charge. They
Well,
of course,
it was a
his
palace
presidential
coup.
guard. It was a palace coup. Now, they could have staged that coup before the election or during the election, when things were very bad. They waited. They waited for the icing on the cake to drop. As soon as they announced that Bongo had won, as at that time, the angst against the government had reached its peak. But that's when they struck. People are going to come out and it's a normal thing. Even villains become heroes overnight if the conditions are good in any country. So these foreign powers calculate and wait. Believe me, when the coup against Balewa was, people were happy on the streets of Lagos. Across the country, because there was massive corruption. Didn't you see pictures of Francis Okoye-Tebo, whose rapper was as long as a 3-story building?
Somebody's neck.
And somebody and somebody had to tie it on the person's neck and was following him. There was an employee whose work was to hold his like it was a wedding gown on his neck. There was massive corruption. The 10%ers were there before the coup took place. They give you contract, you do kickback of 10%. Right. It had been there. So sorry, they always wait for the opportune moment to strike. The people are happy. Of course, the bad government is gone. They now come in, but check what happens after 1 year. In Burkina Faso, for this coup to take place, for the young man's coup to take place, do you know that the people who came into power said that they needed time to do transition, and we are now going to bring back Blaise Compaoré? Goodness gracious!
You have thoughts so that we'll wrap this up.
The thing is that foreign support is important, but sometimes it's not the central issue. In most of these countries, the groundwork is laid for a coup by the local leaders. Like he was talking about moral support, they needed him to rig the election, make the announcement, so that there will be this crescendo. It will reach a certain point that people are really prepared for such a change. And the change, you don't expect a change, because the man that removed him was the man that was instrumental in propping him up for so many years, a former general. And he said, we are not in a hurry to arrange any election.
Cousin to him, actually.
A cousin, yeah. I'm not in a hurry to
because we
arrange
don't want
any,
the same people in power.
And the same people in power will always come back, except if you have a semi-revolution like Rawlings did in Ghana.
Can he say he won't run for president?
Okay, so it's the same people, the same group of people.
Rice?
Oh, you don't see it coming?
But he's part of the power elite. He's part of the oligarchy.
He is the president's cousin.
So he has benefited from whatever.
Have to become a civilian.
He won't have to become a civilian.
Well, it's all his choice. If he chooses to, he has been part of whatever that was wrong with the system all along. So you don't expect him doing anything dramatic or radical with the system, So
excuse me, sir. He needs he needs structure.
To run for
president.
You think that's what will happen?
He can if he wants to. The thing is that foreign interest or foreign influence is there, but it's not the central thing. The central thing is the internal workings of the system, the bungling up of the system by the political elite, the mass discontent they generate, they engender in the process, lay the foundation, for such provide the enabling environment
exactly
for such
the fertile soil. Exactly.
Now people are pointing their fingers at Togo. Anyway,
Togo and Cameroon. Cameroon.
Even Uganda, Museveni is not a terribly bad leader. He has worked hard to improve the situation of
his country.
In his country, but he has overstayed. And he's muscling opposition. He's not allowing freedom of speech.
By spraying pepper in people's eyes.
He does terrible things.
Okay, all right. Let's wrap this up right now and go to another topic where the president of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu, has recalled all of Nigeria's ambassadors. Now, this certainly looks like a factory reset for the diplomats representing the country in foreign land. Last week, the president ordered the recall of the nation's high commissioners to the UK, but later a spokesperson for the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Maitama Tuga, issued a clarification saying that the president had actually recalled all career ambassadors and non-career ambassadors. Now, no reason was given at the time. The president ordered for this recall. Um, ambassadors, as representatives of any country, serve at the behest of the president or prime minister, who has the prerogative to send them or to recall them from any country. Now, the recall of ambassadors by Tinubu indicates that new envoys will be appointed or existing ones redeployed to new assignments. Now, in a separate statement, presidential spokesperson Ajuri Ngalali said the recall is sequel to the president's careful study of the present state of affairs at Nigerian consulate offices and embassies worldwide. Now, recalling all of 109, except for one, of the ambassadors that we have, did you see this coming?
No, I didn't see it coming because he said he will continue from where Buhari stopped. It's the same political party and it's the same political philosophy, the same modus operandi.
Supposedly.
It's supposed, that's what he said, yeah, okay. So I'm surprised of this kind of radical action in the with the diplomatic corps. But then sometimes leaders need to flex their muscles. They need to show, I am in charge. This is a new era. It cannot be business as usual. That might be one reason. Another thing is that our president is under a lot of pressure from within and pressure from without. There are issues about the election that brought him to power. There are issues about his credibility, issues about his character, issues about his identity. There's so much haunting the president. And then University of Chicago just said we have no record of him ever being our president. So, as I'm sorry, being our student, which is a bludgeon to the head. You say I graduated from so-so school, and the school is saying, or the FBI, which is even a high authority, and the school is saying, this man never attended this school for once. And
but how does that relate to him recalling ambassadors now?
Is he a piece of wood? You tell me you studied at Nsukka and I realize you were never at Nsukka and it's public news, the whole country, national, international. Wouldn't it affect you? What are diplomats? They have a lot of job to do, but part of it is image making. So why wouldn't you call these guys back and say, under this, with my image suffering so much, my credibility suffering so much, we might need a new strategy on how to do things, on how to position Nigeria, how to position me. Of course, it's president. I don't know why he did it. It's his prerogative. It's within his right, authority as the president. But as for why he's doing it, I can only conjecture. It's all conjectural. We don't know. So it might be to flex his muscle. It might be to talk to them because of the pressure. Guide them as to how to handle this pressure on him. It might just be he wants to bring his new guys because S.G. Koku talked about what he called Yoruba irredentism. And a man in the customs, sometimes I write biographies. A man had consulted my group to write a biography on him, a very high-ranking man in the customs, and he's complaining bitterly about what is happening in the customs since the Tinubu administration came in, that a man who got a job at level 08 4 years ago after his youth service corps is now being appointed a director. And a lot of people who don't know anything about the jobs are being appointed to very powerful positions. And that Ikoku was called it Yoruba irredentism. So maybe he needs to reappoint the ambassadors in line with Yoruba consensus, which is Yoruba irredentism. But as for exactly what it is, I'm guessing. Reappoint people, put his own. He is very loyal to his loyalists. He rewards, Tinubu rewards loyalty. So he might want to put his loyalists, he might want to Yorubanize the diplomatic corps.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's all left for him, but we can only guess.
All right, Cyril. Now let's take a statement. Let's take a quote from the presidential spokesman Ajuri Ngalali. He said the president is determined to ensure world class world class efficiency and quality will henceforth characterize foreign and domestic service delivery. Residents and prospective visitors alike. Now, the president determined to ensure world-class efficiency and quality. Given this as a reason for the recall, Cyril. Now, do you buy into ensuring efficiency? Does this say that those that Buhari appointed in 2020 have not been efficient enough?
Well, so I'm glad you tied this back to the Buhari era. Let's even tie it back to Buhari's first term, when he came and said that because of the scarcity of resources, that we needed to shut down almost 100 embassies around the world. I don't know if you remember that story.
Many.
Something like that, or
109 actually,
or dozens. He said, yeah, but he said we're going to shut down dozens of embassies, dozens, scores or dozens, about 40, 50, or 60 embassies around the world. Later on, I'm not sure we followed through with that policy. Ideally, an ambassador has all the powers of his president in that country. The place where the embassy is located is sovereign land. The host country cannot even go there and make an arrest or do anything. It has all the paraphernalia and the powers of the sovereign of the country the ambassador is supposed to represent. On the roads, you cannot stop and search vehicles, and you see a vehicle marked as diplomatic corps, and you want to, for example, stop it and search it. You can't do that. You cannot. You cannot subject diplomatic officials to the same rules and standards by which you run. You subject even your own citizens. This is just to underscore the power and place a diplomat holds in the country he has been sent to represent his home country or his home government. Now, Mr. Ozikwan was very correct in saying that the ambassadors are image makers. It is through their work that people can view the home country, whether it's a good country, bad country, strong country, weak country, and so on. So a lot is at stake when we want to fill in those gaps. When the president wants to undertake a wholesale reshuffling, or in some cases outright dismissal or appointment or reappointment of diplomats. The reality is that what the president I see in all of this is, you were asking Tochukwu earlier whether he saw it coming. I think we saw it coming, but perhaps not at this time or this way. There are people are waiting. Of course, people are on the queue. Party loyalists, party faithful, and men are waiting to be given juicy appointments, ambassadorial appointments, agency appointments, director appointments. The MDAs and all of these are the ways and the avenues where people get appointed into high offices. So the expectation has been very strong. People have been waiting and saying, "Oh God, June has passed now. July has passed now. August has also passed. What are we still waiting for?" So the president is calling them back because there are people who are waiting in the wings to fill up these offices. But the question is, beyond what Ngelale has written, what is the actual yardstick for judging and believing that those you appoint will be equal to the task and can deliver? Nigeria, as it is today, has a serious burden. One, our foreign policy went from political foreign policy to economic foreign policy at a time. We are trying to get back our place as a strong political force in Africa. There are coups in Niger, coups in Gabon, coups in... why is it that these things are happening close to us and nobody gives a hoot whether Nigeria will sit up and will wake up and back or not? When Obasanjo was president, there was a coup in Satuma Principe. He took up the phone and said, "Mr. President, you must release this man that you've ousted within days, otherwise I'll come and deal with you." And Satuma Principe, in fact, that was when first we were beginning to hear that there was a country called Satuma and Principe. Before now, we didn't know such a country existed. But when Obasanjo roared, the junta in Satuma caught cold and begged and, reinstated a president. Why has Nigeria lost that face? And who is that ambassador who can send to any of these countries that can help to restore our image as a country of repute, as a strong nation. Spain, Canada, the UK, US, India, China, Brazil, Japan, South Korea, Russia, all the strong economies of the world, where people that are going to go there and represent Nigeria's face and be able to attract investors to come. For example, the president has landed in India this morning for the G20 summit. But the question is that even before the president goes, who is the person who is his eyes and ears on the ground? Is the ambassador. Can the ambassador, either before the president goes, already book down some people that come and invest, or after the summit, be able to now push to do the follow-up work? So being an ambassador is no joke. But I won't be surprised if, in spite of what Ngelale has said, tomorrow we see that a lot of APC faithful are now told, oh yeah, there's vacancy, come. Since you don't know when the next one will come, the one we don't come, and just take it and go. You go to Kenya, you go to Rwanda, you go
now,
to.
In light of filling up these positions, sensitive ones, with party faithfuls, should we be worried that, first of all, the recall might have been prematurely done, and secondly, what is the guarantee that those that will fill in these positions would be, those that are ripe for such positions? Because prior to the ministerial list that came out, we talked a lot about the possibility of the president having technocrats, in his team. But we saw that at the end of the day, there were a lot more politicians than technocrats, in quotes, down on his team. What do you make of this, please?
Well, as for the timing, I have no information to say whether the timing is right or wrong. I don't know.
They usually will have a 4-year term,
yes,
but some were just appointed in 2020.
Yeah, but he's doing what is within his authority. He has done nothing
Absolute
wrong
prerogative too.
in that respect. Whether these men are men that will ensure efficiency, whether these men are right, let me borrow your word, and they can do the job right, depends on the presidency. What is his objective? Are you going there to burnish the image of Nigeria, to get diplomats that will do an exceptionally good job in the interest of Nigeria? Or is the motivation primarily to reward loyalists, friends, and cronies, and to hell with the outcome? So it all depends on the president. But I'm not crazy about technocrats. The Nigerian factor is our problem. Goodluck Jonathan had a lot of technocrats. Supposedly was a technocrat himself, and people like Okonjo-Iweala, Okukpe, they had all these
Aganga,
certificates, PhDs,
Adeni,
truckload of certificates and degrees, but they didn't do a good job. Goodluck Jonathan did not do a good job, period, as far as I'm concerned.
As far as you're concerned.
Yes, I'm only speaking for myself.
Even Wale Edun confirmed that Jonathan was the last person to stabilize the economy.
Stabilize.
The Buhari 8 years, we are.
No, you're comparing.
He's-
Comparing Jonathan and Buhari. Jonathan did a better job than Buhari, but Jonathan was not a good president.
Okay.
So he's talking about bad and worst. Okay, under Jonathan, the price of oil was so high. Nigeria made so much money. He was pushed around. People wasted so much money. So he was a
Now,
bad.
was that as a result of the technocrats not doing their job, or the president himself not taking advice and executing things properly?
We're saying the same thing. So it boils down to the president, whether he has the technocrats or non-technocrats. It's about the objective of the administration. And whomever the president brings around him, like I said, he reflects the person the president is. If you're a crook and you like crooks around you, it will be reflected in your ministers. It's a reflection of who you are. So Goodluck Jonathan brought his kind of people. So whether it's kind of people had degrees, excessive degrees or not, they did a bad job. In the 60s, you talked about 10% as corruption.
Yes.
The politicians misappropriated 5%. The notoriously, incorrigibly corrupt politicians misappropriated 10%, which was reasonable by the standards of the time. Because today you over-invoice the project, double it, and spend all the money.
Yeah.
So it's like 200% the level of corruption these days. So then it was reasonable. Were those guys technocrats? Tafawa Balewa was not a technocrat. M.I. Obara was not a technocrat. Ahmadu Bello was not a technocrat. Maybe Abafemi Awolowo, marginally. But they did an exceptionally good job. So all this nomenclature, all this overemphasis on certificates, I'm not interested in them. It depends on the objective of the president, what he wants to achieve, the kind of men he brought around him to get the job done. That's what determines the whole thing. Not a technocrat can be a thief. A technocrat can steal money. A technocrat can lie.
Certainly.
A technocrat
Certainly.
can be lazy. It's all personal choice.
And we've seen them do all of this in Nigeria.
Of course.
Let's hear your final thoughts.
Of course we have.
Sarah.
Yeah, well, so the thing is that we must deal with the causes of coups in Africa.
Okay.
Deal with poverty, deal with insecurity, deal with corruption in government, deal with leaders who have no business being there but just want to be there because they can be there. Secondly, on the question of recalling ambassadors, our president has to now make sure that he looks, you know, what they said was they was going to look around the country and select the best. He needs to look out for and select the best of us to lead the rest of us. Until he does that, we will remain wallowing in this poverty and quagmire that we're in.
All right.
And that'll be very unfortunate.
Unfortunate indeed. If that pleases us, your final thoughts, please.
My final thought is that this coups will continue until the political elite provide the antidote to coups. And the antidote to coups is good governance. Antidote to coups, respect for the rule of law.
Yeah.
Antidote to coups, credible, fair, and free elections. Once we lack those ingredients in our political process, the coups will continue to be there. The recalling of the ambassadors, the president did what is within his prerogative as a president. For the reasons of doing it, we can only conjecture. But let us wish, let us hope, let us believe that it's in the interest of the country.
All right, then. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We've been speaking with Tochukwu Ezukama, social affairs commentator and an author, and also Cyril Abako, who is VOP in-house analyst. I must thank the gentlemen once again for staying with us in the program.
My
You're
pleasure.
welcome.
My pleasure.
Well, that's the size of our package today on VOP TV. That's Political Voice. On behalf of the team, you do know that you can watch this program again if you visit our YouTube page. It's Voice of the People TV up on YouTube. I would like for you to subscribe and be part of the conversation going on right there. Now, on behalf of the team, I am Moses Humphrey, wishing you a beautiful day and thanking you for staying with us. Bye for now.